Hello and welcome back to the African Union Profile. My name is Moussa. I am your host. I would begin by saying Happy New Year to our viewing audience, and we pray that 2012 brings peace and health and prosperity to everyone who watches this show and their families and friends. I am so excited today to begin the new year with a subject or a topic that is near and dear to many, many people throughout the world. It is a subject that could be a source of peace and success, but unfortunately it is also a subject that can cause havoc and united. This subject, I'm sure you will hear a lot about differences, especially in Africa, where you will find some of the most individuals who hold this subject close to their heart, even sometimes willing to sacrifice everything for it. What subject am I talking about? Well, this subject is religion. You see, today, two of the most biggest religions in the world, or two religions that have the largest followers in the world, actually can trace their origins out of the African continent. But yet, the question is, are they empowering us as Africans, or are they weakening us? Are they a source of self-dignity, or is it something that creates challenges for us? We have a guest who will talk to us about the African traditional religions or beliefs, which predates actually all other religions and still being practiced throughout Africa, even though most Africans or even most non-Africans don't hear a lot about it. But traditional practice is life and well, and with many, many followers. And a lot of people are discovering now, actually, the traditional practice, because, sometimes when you get to a difficult situation, then you begin to study more about who you are and where you're coming from and what you are made of. And, a lot of the Africans who used to follow, Christianity or Islam or other religions actually are coming back to the African way of living, African belief, African religions, good or bad, but that is the reality. And today we have a guest who will talk to us more about, the subjects of African, traditional practices or traditional belief or traditional religion, and a man that is very well familiar with the subject because I've watched him talk about it. Personally, I do not have a background in African traditionalism. Same on me, but I'm willing to acknowledge it. And I'm sure I'm not alone, among my African brothers and sisters. But anyway, our guest today is Miss Ayinibisa Ayala. And he was born in the village of Sumburongo in northern Ghana. And out of 10 siblings, he was the only child to step into a classroom, and thanks to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's policy of fee-free education from elementary to university level in the late 50s and 60s. Mr. Ayala migrated to the United States, attended Lehman College, and earned a BA in political science. He is the author of Sumurungu, Survival at All Costs, an executive producer of Divine Speech in African Traditionalism, a talk show on BronzeNet Channel 70. He has dedicated his life to raising the awareness level of Africans, especially the youth, by promoting the study of history with the creation of African History and Higher Culture Club. He is the executive director of the organization, which is headquartered in Bolgatanga in Upper East region of Ghana. Now, without further ado, we will get to the topic of African traditional practices. So, Mr. Ayala, welcome to the African Union Profile.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me. I'm very delighted. I hope this sends out information to the African masses and also people of different cultures who are not aware of, you know, the practices in Africa and how people in Africa connect to their creator. I hope this, you know, helps us today.
I hope so too. We have an hour long for you to tell us.
All right.
You know, in recent census studies, numbered Africans close to 100,000 immigrants or African immigrants residing in the Bronx.
Okay.
Meaning that Bronx is a home to more Africans than any other boroughs in New York City.
My goodness.
And, you know, in most cases, when you said an African immigrant or African family, or when you say an African, people identified either with Christianity or Islam. So my question to you is, what are the African traditional practices or religions outside of Christianity and Islam?
Well, it's African traditionalism. The original tradition or the original religion of Africa. You know, during creation, now we hear about the creation stories of Adam and Eve, but we don't know that there are creation stories in Africa. Or even if they are, people are not actually aware of them. African traditionalism was introduced to humankind by gods themselves, not human beings. We did not invent it. And it did not come from an angel. It was introduced to us by gods. The title of my show is Divine Speech in African Traditionalism. I'm trying to bring this not because I'm trying to promote my show, but the meaning. I'm trying to bring the meaning of African traditionalism. Divine speech is a writing called Medoneta. And that writing was introduced to man by a god called Jehuti. That god also introduced religion to Africans. So you're talking about the writing to let you know how to read and write, and also how to pray. African tradition, based on that God's teachings, tells you that you just don't rise to pray to God. You rise to pray to your father and your mother, because they are the ones who brought you forth. So by respecting them, now you go through the hierarchy. You go through step by step to the top. So if you look in Africa, when they build the pyramids, you see the bottom part of the pyramid is larger than the top part of the pyramid. The higher you go, the more powerful you become. And that is the structure of the pyramid. And that is how African traditionalism, the prayer starts. It starts with your father and your mother. It starts with deities, your ancestors. And then it goes to goddesses and gods. And then finally it gets to the supreme being. And the supreme being, in my tradition, is called Nawene. But I've grown up to learn that even my ancestor's name bears one of the supreme being's name, Amon Ra or Amon Re. That is the supreme being. that all traditionalists, whenever they pray, when they say they've reached the peak, they're talking to that God.
So, you know, because of the bias toward the African traditionalist practices by other faith followers, sometimes they associate, you know, African beliefs as, they would go as far as human sacrifice. So can you clarify about, you know, to us what, you know, sacrifice and libel and, you know, some of the practices that can be attributable to the African traditional religions?
See, when Africa was conquered, the conquerors tried to define anything African to be primitive.
Okay.
Our kings were demoted to chiefs.
Okay.
So if there's a chief, an African king, whose land size is bigger than Great Britain, that chief, that king is called a chief. Demotion. The African clergy was the worst propagated organization or structure in Africa, because our clergy were defined either as fetish priests or witch doctors. And anything that they did was devilish. The propaganda was so powerful that the educated elite of Africa joined the forces, the foreign forces that were propagating against African religion. And then it came to the point whereby we could not even define what African traditionalism is. Later generations are changing that because African tradition needs explanatory power. Say, for example, you talked about libation. What is libation? Libation is a prayer normally used with either water or liquor. And normally, when you're pouring libation, you're calling the spirits to come around to solve a problem. Now, the problem could be a natural disaster. And because of that natural disaster, you really have to get a powerful priest to say the prayer. Now, the priest has to know all the divinities around the area. So, for example, we are in the Bronx. If you're going to pour libation in the Bronx without knowing the divinities within the Bronx, it's not going to work. So the African traditional structure is based on the fact that you start with your father, you start with your grandfather, who is your ancestor, and call the land deities. The Bronx, the deity, the land deity of the Bronx, the water deities of the Bronx, then go universal to the sky deities of the earth, because the sky deities have no division. And then you get to, you know, the divine, the most powerful divinity, and ask, you know, for resolution to your problem. So this is how African traditional structure is. We have funerals. And those people who perform funerals have their own special powers. There's a particular God that gives them that power. And that God's name is Ampo.
Ampo.
Ampo. Ampo in my language means who swore.